welcome to the Paddock Paradise podcast. This is our first episode, and we'll be talking to Bethan Thornicroft of Gawsworth Track Livery in the UK. We'll talk horses, tracks, and lots more.
Looking back, it just proves the point of a track system. As long as you create the right environment for them, you don't, as a person, you don't really have to do that much with the horse. I hated stables, I hated keeping horses in. I always tried to go for the option of, if the livery yard owner let us, I'd always want to keep my horse out. But then there'd be the other people that would still choose to keep them in and separate, and I never understood that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Beth, we're in your shed, barn.
Yeah.
You set up your track system here.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and why you're doing this?
So, me and Dan got together about 5 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And we met on we're going to have to start again because I'm going to have to turn that off.
No, just let it run. It's all right.
No, it'll be steaming everywhere.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's fine. We'll just...
Oh, okay, we'll cut it.
So,
Yeah, so...
that was the kettle.
Yeah. So we met like 5 years ago in a traditional livery yard.
Yeah.
And we were very, disillusioned by the whole traditional...
You had horses?
Yeah.
The both of you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dan also had a girlfriend as well as a horse, so that's...
That's another story.
That's another story. But anyway, we were on a livery yard together, and then we lost touch for a little while, and then we kind of came together maybe 18 months, 2 years later, and Dan was keeping his horse at the farm, his father's farm, just up there. And we was dating and seeing each other, and then my horse moved there as well, and then we had like 4 or 5 grass livery horses, and his father was complaining, it's churning up the grass, it's making a mess, and then we were on a night out, and I'd seen on Facebook or somewhere a video of these little Shetland ponies running around a track system. I thought it's a great idea, so I told Dan about it, and he was like, that sounds really good, that's great. And I was like, yeah. And for me, it was originally for...
You were thinking in terms of slimming down the horse?
Well, no, it was to save the grass. So I didn't have him mithering me, getting annoyed about the grass being churned up. My mare was barefoot purely through... I had been unwell and I wasn't riding her, so I'd had her shoes taken off, and I just never got round to putting them back on again, and saw that she was okay. And Dan's horse, Dan had been in a car accident and wasn't riding, so his horsey's shoes were taken off. So they were both barefoot, and we said, right, well, let's have a go at this track system thing. So we put the fence post out, and we made a temporary kind of fence, and it was a grass dirt track. But it was
when was this?
Yes, it was the summer of either 2017 or 2018, and we had a drought here in the UK, and we had 6 weeks of no rain. It was scorching hot, and all the grass got burnt off.
So it was magic.
So it was great, yeah, it was great. So we could welcome,
was working.
Yeah, it was like the stars aligned. We could welcome, we did a bit of research what track systems did and the benefits of it. So, when we put our advert out saying ideal for laminitics, overweight horses and Cushing blood.
So you started taking in liveries right away?
Yeah, so we trialled it. When we finished the track, we let the grass livery horses, which included ours, onto it, and they ate it down a bit, and then we took a couple of laminitic ones. We didn't know what we were doing, but looking back, it just proves the point of a track system. As long as you create the right environment for them, you don't, as a person, you don't really have to do that much with the horse. The system
kind of manages itself.
Manages it, yeah. So with the horses, each month we got more horses, and we're getting livery money, and we were able to buy surface a bit at a time, and we just added a bit.
But I can imagine at some point the rain came, and then
the rain did come, and we'd got half of the track surfaced, and then I was looking after the horses. Dan had another job because we didn't have enough horses to sustain us. So I was looking after the horses on my own. We didn't have a quad bike or anything like that.
So what are your backgrounds? What did you used to do? All sorts.
So Dan was.
He's from here.
He's from here. So yeah, the Thornicroft family have farmed this land for it's about 400 years. It goes back generations and generations.
Wow.
But Dan wasn't in farming. Dan worked in sales as a businessman. I worked as a exotic dancer in nightclubs.
Nice.
So very far removed from this. But I've had horses since I learnt to ride when I was 7. Had my first pony at 11, but I'd never had my own land, or I'd always been on livery yards. But I'd always tried to. I hated stables. I hated keeping horses in. I always tried to go for the option of, if the livery yard owner let us, I'd always want to keep my horse out. But then there'd be the other people that would still choose to keep them in and separate. And I never understood that.
Didn't feel right.
No. So yeah, we set the track up, and slowly but surely we built it. We got it half surfaced, and then the rain came. And I was looking after these horses, and there was half of the track that wasn't surfaced, and you could imagine what it was like. Mm-hmm. And Dan came, we had a little caravan that I used to have a cup of tea and have lunch in, and Dan came for his lunch, and I sat there and cried at him, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't, there's just too much. I was like, you need to get that done. I was not doing it anymore. The mud's too much, the horses are swimming, I can't cope with it. So Dan, there and then, got onto a ground worker and said, my girlfriend's just...
She's having a panic attack.
She's malfunctioning. Like, I don't know what to do with her. There's snot and there's tears. She's not making any sense. Please, can you come down? And this guy came, and he walked round. He said, yeah, we can do it. So we had to loan some money off a family member, and they loaned us the money, and we got the rest of it surfaced. And it was a dream come true, and the track worked really well, and we outgrew that place, and there was family issues over there, and we got the opportunity to create it here, and this is what you see today.
All right. So where do you want to go with this? Is this it, or is there going to be more, or is it?
I'm going to have to keep periodically drinking this warm tea because I'm freezing. No, well, even track systems, the sky's the limit, but then also your budget's the limit as well. So, as we were doing on the tour, I was telling I want to extend the track, but then also you've got to think of the mental well-being of ourselves and the staff, because with every horse that comes along, there is a person that comes along with that horse and all their problems and background and issues.
Right now you have a 1,000-meter track.
Yeah.
And it's about how many meters wide?
So on the main runs, it's about 6 to 7 meters wide.
So you got about 6,000 meters, 6 to 7,000 meters, square meters?
Probably a bit more than that, because they've got the bigger corners. But yeah, 7,000. Yeah, those are rough.
And there's
25.
25 horses.
Yeah.
And that's your limit?
I don't know.
That's where you, if it's going to be like, this is going to be the amount of, or are you looking for more?
We've only not only a few days ago, let the newest one out. So they're a bit, the herd's a bit upset because we've got a new horse.
Yeah, you can see the gelding.
Yeah. So
the other end of the field, trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. So I try to just keep my mind open.
But it seems right now, like you have a very. It looks all very calm. As far as I've only been here for a short amount of time, but I see about 4 groups.
Yeah, yeah.
And they disperse themselves all over the terrain. So it's looking quite peacefully, actually. It
is, isn't it? So this is quite, the bit of kerfuffles that you saw then. They are upset. No, I wouldn't say upset. They've been disturbed. So normally we're a lot calmer than this. So I take every horse as, you know, I see how that one's settled, and then if it's settled well and we can handle another horse, the staff can handle another horse, the herd can handle another horse, the track can take another horse, then we would look at maybe taking another horse. And then we'd also look at, we do find mares settle in a lot easier than the geldings, because I feel like the herd see a mare as an asset to them, whereas they see a gelding as, ooh, you're coming to take our women.
Yeah, that makes sense. From a natural perspective.
Yeah. So
how many geldings do you have and how many mares?
I don't know. Off the top of my head, I'd have to think.
Approximately.
Otis, Joshua, probably 8, 9. No, there's going to be more than that. I don't know. I'd have to.
You're counting the geldings now or the mares?
Geldings. So we've got Otis, Joshua, Joe, Justin, Timmy, Bly, Peugeot, Apollo, Buddy, Luca.
Oh, that's a lot.
Top Cat, Bob's.
You'll need some mares.
Yeah.
You're running out of females.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's quite a few geldings. So, yeah, we need...
Yeah.
People get a bit upset, though, when I'll put an ad out saying, mare space available, but then people are like, you run a mixed herd. Why would you need...
Yeah.
And I have to kind of explain it's to balance out. But then they see it as another, they're like, oh, well...
So when you look at the group now, can you see the way they mingle with one another? So you're here all the time. So how many groups within the herd do you think you can see?
So there's Otis and Royal. I mean, they're kind of a pair on their own. Then there's Bly and Peugeot. Bly was an orphaned foal when he was a foal years ago, so he's connected himself to Peugeot as like, although they're both geldings, he's bonded like a foal. And then there's Diva.
So following your calculation just now, you have about 7 mares on approximately 13 geldings, something like that?
Yeah, but some of them, the pair bond are 2 geldings. Yeah. And then there's another group where there's 1 mare and 3 geldings. The 3 geldings share. Yeah. But then there's sometimes 4 geldings. They let another one in sometimes, but then sometimes that gelding goes somewhere else. So yeah, there's probably about 3 or 4 groups, which we find is better. The more horses we've found we've had less fighting injuries. Because when there was just one main group, you'd have another new horse come along, and it was that desperate to get in with that group, even at the cost of being told to go away, it'd still keep coming back. Whereas now we've got lower ranking groups that will welcome that horse, so it'll go and be with them. And we just find it works more harmoniously. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So this whole track system thing, I always refer to it as a paddock paradise track system. In the UK, people usually say the word track systems. What is your... what is the philosophy, or what is the rationale you have behind the whole track system thing? What is a track system or a paddock paradise? What is it to you?
So being on a traditional livery yard, winter, summer, in the winter you see them all locked up because the ground's wet, and then you see a lot of tendon injuries because when they are let out, they run around in the mud on cold legs, they hurt themselves, there's fighting at the gate to be brought in, and then in the summer, there's also a lot of horses locked up because there's laminitis and they're obese, all kinds of problems like that. So that was my original, seeing horses being free, and then you see the benefits that you get from it, of them getting better. And then there's the other side, if you've got a horse that's got laminitis or it's obese or metabolic, or the vets come along and said you can no longer turn that horse out on fresh, green, growing grass that most livery yards are built on. The world for that horse becomes very, very small. Normally a 12 by 12 box, or if they're lucky, a menage that they can, an arena that they might get turned out in, or they might get taken for a hand walk for half an hour. So they then don't get friends, they don't get forage constantly, they definitely don't get freedom. So places like this then open that world up for these types of horses. And
so then immediately it's the type of horses that you end up with.
Yeah, but then now we are seeing more people understanding that horses being kept in stables isn't the way. And many of the behavioural problems we see are down to being locked up in stables, not having friends, not being able to form the bonds that, you know, horses really need to form. Even, you know, they say, oh, my horse goes out for 4 hours a day, 8 hours a day. Yeah, but you're still pulling that horse away every day and locking it up away from its, you know, most horses now don't live in family groups because the pets, but, you know, they make as good as family bonds as we can do here. And the bonds that are made out on that track, you can't separate them.
No.
They get so upset. And then we get people going, oh, he's got separation anxiety. I'm like, he hasn't got separation anxiety. He's a horse. That's what they're made to be together. They are bonded. It's not naughtiness. There's nothing wrong with him. It's just that, oh, well, he was never like that before. No, because he learnt to cope. He had no other choice. Yeah. So, you know, when you see these things, you can never go back. Once you go track, you never go back.
All right. I've heard that before somewhere. Nice. So, is there a future for these track systems, for Paddock Paradise? Is there a future?
I bloody hope so. I've spent enough money on it. Well, I mean...
Because there's still a lot of pushback from the traditional equine community. It's still, I see with our company in the Netherlands that we're building quite a few tracks. We built a lot of tracks last year, but a lot of it's for private horse owners.
Really?
And you can see that the self-employed ones, the people that are entrepreneurial, they're kind of a bit weary because it's a completely different business model. Yeah. I mean, you can put a lot of horses on a small acreage, but it's not like when you don't have the how do I put in a traditional yard when the grass goes to shit. You know, you can box them up or you put them in a paddock. But with a track system, you want them on track and you want to keep them there. So that's an investment. And then you might not be able to take in as many horses, so that might affect your business model. So I see, in Holland at least, I see that a lot of professional horse owners, they're still struggling to make that transition. Yeah, sure. It's a very scary venture. I mean, this place, you know, it's hundreds of thousands of pounds we've spent, and if anything with horses, if you're looking at it, is it viable? Yes, it is viable. Okay. We are viable. We do the pumpkins and sunflowers as well. But yeah, I would say we are, because we have been, it's hard because we have purpose built this. So it's been built to be as viable as possible. We've made it as easy as possible to clean, to look after, made it, you know, everything as easy as possible. So if you're doing it on a repurposed place, maybe it can be more difficult. And you've got to have the passion to want to do it and not just look at it as a figures point of view. You have to want it. You've got to want it, and you've got to be, you know, in the beginning. But in order to want it, I think you have to understand it as well. Yes, so this is why I do things like this. I do a lot of interviews and magazines, and I try to do as much as I possibly can. I put as much as I can out there to show the world that these horses are getting better. It's a good way to keep horses. You know, we recently travelled to Dubai and showed, you know, there's Holly over there who competes bitless and barefoot, to show people that even competition horses that are worth a lot of money, they still deserve to be out, and it's still possible to have it all. A lot of people ask, well, how do you catch your horse when it's on a track? How do you catch it to bring it in to groom it or do whatever you want to do? I'm like, well, you go out and you put a head collar and you bring it in, but people seem to think that they just go
wild and feral. But, you know, it is quite a...
Well, it's actually the contrary. They become super calm.
Yeah,
Much
because...
easier. You might have to walk a bit, but they're
I say that...
easier to get them out.
I say I'm going to do the extension up there, and some of the owners are like, well, that's a long way to walk. And I'm like, well, you best get your walking shoes on then, aren't you? It'll do you good, and it'll do the horse good. But, yeah, it's... we've got to keep putting it out there.
But then how do you put a fence around the thing? And not literally, but how do you put a fence around the whole track system thing? Because I come from the Jamie Jackson background. I was trained by Jamie Jackson. I adhere to the 4 pillar principles where you look at diet, boarding, and training of the horse, and the trimming. There's all these aspects of equine life that come into play and make the horse a better horse. I've seen how it works. I know how it works. So those are kind of parameters that we use to do what we do. But how is that for you, and how do you think that would be for others? How do you fence this system in such a way that people do things right, to prevent them from cocking up, so to speak?
It's all about education again. But
where do you start? Where do you?
What
did you do?
Is from... Well, I got drunk and thought it was a good idea at a nightclub. But you've got to... the education's got to be there. It's the responsibility of people like myself, people like you, other track system owners. We've got to put it out there, and we've got to show that it is viable. There's so many people now writing books, doing podcasts, and they're putting that information out there. I wouldn't know, to answer your question, I wouldn't know how to package this up and sell it as like a franchise and say, this is what you need to do. I wouldn't know how to do that. I only know from my own experience, and that's why I share so much of what we do, the ups, the downs, the failures, the good parts, the bad parts. And I try to show as much as we possibly can, and hope that people will see and follow suit. And people are. There's track systems happening. There's people that are going through planning permission to get it, because that's another big issue.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. So planning permission it's different in every country. What's it like in the UK? What are the issues that you run into? What are the problems? Oh, we got our... there's a tame pheasant that just...
I say he's tame, but he can be...
sometimes he attacks.
He attacks sometimes. So we'll just keep it as Philip the pheasant.
Philip the pheasant.
He's looking for Phyllis, his wife. There's Philip and Phyllis. What was the question?
Planning permission. So you're dealing with councils.
So in the UK, every county has a borough has its own local planning authority, and they have their own set of rules within each local planning authority.
And are the rules very different from one authority to the
and it's
other?
not, there's policy, it's called policy, and it can all be down to personal opinion of whoever's on your case. They can reinterpret it in whatever way that they want to. So it's expensive, it's difficult, and that can be one of the major things that can put a stop to these things.
But in general, in the UK, are there, like, putting up a track usually means you have to do some digging, you might have to put material in there that naturally doesn't belong, and then, the authority might think something of that.
Yeah, you can't just go around...
do it.
No. Some places are a bit more relaxed about it than others, but here in Cheshire, in the green belt that we're in, they are very strict. You can't even go putting material in like a gateway that's getting muddy. They would be upset about that. Or you can't just go putting field shelters up wherever you want to do it. They will have a problem with that. And the local people are very protective of...
That's Philip trying to fly through the roof, which failed, and now he's found a ledge.
He should be able to get through. It's
should
open.
be able to get through.
Animals do the funniest things. That's totally knocked me off. Yeah, so people are very protective of the view of the countryside, especially the beautiful...
Which makes sense.
Yeah, people, I'll say it would become a shanty town if everyone was allowed to put up shelters here and a stable block there, and it'd just look a mess.
It's also things are very contradictory because everybody's on animal welfare now. We all want the best for our animals, any animal. We want to save nature. We want to save the planet. We want to do all that, but we also want to keep the cultural landscape that we have.
Yeah.
So these authorities, they're in a bit of a pickle because they have to choose sides, really. And my experience is that with this whole track system thing, it's very important to create natural elements that they can relate to, and then.
Yeah. So logic sometimes doesn't seem to play a part in some of these decisions that are made.
No, but if let's say you apply for a track system, I don't know how you've done it, but do you hand in a design, or do you think about maybe we'll put some hedges over here, trees, and something to get them on your side?
In my experience, we keep it as vague as possible.
Okay.
Then you're not nailed down to something that has to be. If you put in loads of detail and of every little bit you're going to put in and every turn and corner that you want, they will make sure that you have followed that to the dot. And so we tried to keep it as vague as possible.
Okay. But then on the other side, you could say, look, if you can create something that you know, for the most part of your design, fits the landscape.
Yeah, they're not. I can only go off my experience of doing it twice. They are not really that fussed about how it's really going to look. The more bothered about is the business viable. So having a report written and proving the policies it all applies to, rural enterprise, rural employment in areas that are not very populated, that is more of a sway to get them on side rather than how it looks.
Okay, but what is it like for private horse owners? Is that very different?
I couldn't tell you because I've never done it, but I could imagine it would be more difficult.
More difficult.
Yeah, but then you can't here in the UK, like this land was agricultural land, so you can't just go. Even if we didn't put a track system up, you can't just chuck horses on agricultural land. It has to have a change of use then to equestrian use. So it's difficult no matter which way you look at it. But it's not to say it's not doable. There are specialist agents, equine planning agents that you can use. We used one for both that application over there and this one. And
can they relate to what you're going to do? Or?
My one is doing it. First, she couldn't quite get it and she thought it was a riding track. A lot of people think it's a riding track. But now, a few years down the line, she sees what we do. She totally gets it now, and she can put across what is we do and the need for it. And she will. There's laws in Sweden or somewhere that says you can't keep horses locked up for however many hours a day, and so we state things like that in the proposal, and that helps to sway it. Also, education. I've done talks in colleges and universities, and we've had students come here, so that always helps the council as well to show them that it's an educational thing. And I've also had children who are from like the care, so they've been taken into care, and they get to come and experience being around horses and having some work experience and things like that.
Young.
Yeah, so it just helps to show that we are a asset to the community rather than a drain.
Yeah, very smart. So, in terms of the horses, are they all barefoot?
Oh, of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, does that mean that horses with shoes are not allowed?
Yes.
Could you explain why that is?
Well,
your stance is on that?
Yeah, so one, there's the safety aspect of it. Shoes, with the hay nets that we use, the fencing, injuring each other, but horses could still injure each other with shoes or without shoes. And then the people that are looking at this way of life tend to be the people who have already, or are trying to leave behind the traditional ways of keeping horses, which then leads them to more looking at barefoot and, you know, natural trim and things like that. And then that'll inevitably lead you to Jamie Jackson and people like yourselves. And it's just how it was for us. It was just, well, this is just what you do when our horses are barefoot, and then they're out on the track, and it all makes sense. You put the surfaces down, you see the improvement in the feet, and why would you ever go back to the shoes? And you get horses come with such poor feet, damaged feet from the shoes, living in a box, not getting enough movement or stimulation, and then they come here and you see them get better. You can't ever imagine then going back. It's going backwards.
Yeah, it is. But sometimes you see that people are kind of worried of getting enough clients, and then they'll allow people in that do have shoes and that might have, like, for example, you have a big concrete slab over here. I can imagine a horse in shoes would just
you can't do that.
Slide down that.
Yeah,
wouldn't be safe.
Yeah.
So how do you monitor the health of your horses? Like you told me earlier, you don't have a particular background in horse care or tending to feet. So
I have no formal qualification with.
But for you, you have to manage this. You have to manage these horses. You have people paying you money to get the horses here. How do you do it? What are you looking for? What are your...
So, you know, horses are very good at, if they're not happy, if they're stressed, being around horses for a long time, it's like being around people.
You get a sense for it.
And especially being around, you know, your friends or your family. You could look at your friend or your family and be like, "Are you okay today? Are you a bit rough, a bit tired?" So it's the same with horses. You know, if the coats are looking dull, if they're lame, if the stud just being a bit miserable, if the poos aren't looking good, if they're not, you know, socialising, they're not moving about. These are all things that are, for me, are telltale signs that they're not doing great. So we do have horses that come to us that are very shut down socially. They'll be in a pen and they're just stood at the corner, and horses are coming over to say hello and they don't want anything to do with them.
That's how you get the horses in, right? You put them in the pen first so they can get acquainted a little. And
so with one of our quiet, very, you know, amenable horses that's happy to talk to anybody. We'll put them next door to each other, and then the water's up here, so the horses have to come up to get a drink, and then they'll see the new horse, and the gates are set very high as well, so any legs flying.
And how long do you keep them in there?
Couple of days, mares, couple of days, geldings maybe 3 or 4 days. Then we let them out for the day whilst we're here poo picking. So we're going round on the quad and we're with them, and if anything should happen, we try not to intervene too much. Then sometimes they stay out forever then, or we'll bring them back in for the night time for a bit. But usually they just stay out.
So people are always worried about horses fighting and getting injured and all that. Do you see a lot of that going on?
What we see as people when horses are interacting can look a lot worse than what is actually going on. When a horse lunges at another horse, there's clatter banging and sometimes squealing, but 9 times out of 10 there's not that much contact made, and you go look at the horse afterwards and there's maybe a bit of slobber on them or a bit of hair missing, but the noise, if you'd have heard it would sound like they were killing each other. So we don't, you know, we try not to intervene too much, and these guys are very good at taking newbies in, and as long as there's food and enough space and everyone's happy, then we don't really have many issues.
So the horses that come in, do they all stay? Do you have do people leave? Is there, because usually when you go to livery stables, you see people coming in and out, and you know, there's a new one, they stay for a month, they leave. How is that on a track system? Is it a constant thing?
So in the beginning, we did have a 3-month minimum term, and we had a lot of rehab horses, and there was a lot of coming and going, but then I've changed it now to 6 months, and I'm trying to move more away from ones that are going to go home.
Oh, so that was their objective. They come here to rehabilitate their horse and then move out again.
Yeah. But now I'm trying to keep it more that they stay here. And it is, most of the horses here now will stay with us forever.
This is my experience with track systems, that when you have a proper track system set up in the sense that it works for most horses, then you don't see a lot of people leave.
No, they don't want to go.
They want to stay.
Yeah, no, most of these horses here, people have realised that there's nowhere else for them to go, or they would have to be living in a box, or if they turned them out on grass, they would be back to square one again. So there's no real point in that. So that's what we're trying to keep it more of a stable herd, but without the stable.
Yeah, without the stable. So what are your plans for the future, aside from the track? What are you going to do here? I hear you've got a clinic coming up here.
Yeah, so Barefoot, Horse Magazine, Lindsay Setchell, Hoofing Marvellous, that's what it's called. They're coming to do a 3-day workshop.
And you're going to attend, you're going to participate?
Yeah, so I'm going to participate, and one of the girls that works for us, Katie, she's participating as well. She keeps her 2 horses here. It's all, like I say, it's all about education. You'd never know everything. Mm-hmm. And like I said, it's been a learning on the job thing for us. We want to carry on with the livery business. We want to do more education, and I do know there's more universities and colleges that want to come on visits here with students, which I think it's important to be teaching the students who are doing education in horse welfare, horse husbandry, that it's not, there's another option. And this is, in my opinion, and I'm sure in your opinion, it's the right way of keeping horses, and not to be teaching them from day one that you have a stable and a paddock and that's it. So, education is really important for us.
Yes. Well, I'm not saying this is the only option to keep horses, but from my experience and from my perspective, it appears to be the best way to keep horses.
Yeah, if we could, if I could replicate, if I could
put my horses in a field today and know that they'd be fine, I would do it.
I would. I've said I would rather see horses running around 50 acres of meadowland and rockeries and woodland, and I would much rather see them there than on a track.
Yeah.
But if we don't have that, and we can't change the land like that, we're not allowed to, it would cost huge amounts of money. So it's not possible to do. So this is the next best thing.
Plus, and this is where the education part comes in. A lot of people are not completely aware of what a horse is and where they come from. They're not a wild horse anymore. That's what they think. Right.
The domestic horse has nothing to do with the wild horse. Many people believe that.
Yes, and this, of course, is absolutely not true.
Yeah,
because genetically they're the same species. They were just kind of renamed from Equus ferus, the wild horse, to Equus ferus cabalis, but they're the same species. Yeah. They have the same needs, the same desires, etc. And we've only been pilling around with horses for about 5,000-6,000 years, and they've been around for 1.5 to 3 million in this current form. So they
know how to horse.
They know how to be a horse.
Yeah, they know how to horse better than we know.
But then we took them out of horse country and we put them in people's country, and that's when
they don't know how to survive in people country. They know how to survive in horse world. Yeah. Horses are better at horsing than we are.
Also the what is a horse world? There's what you can find wild horses all over the world, but not all environments are suited to the species. And then you think, oh, this horse has a lot of freedom, and he has all this meadow grass, and it should be all right. But it's not all right, because the ecosystem doesn't fit the species, and that's because as humans we took these horses everywhere.
Yeah.
The Boerenoorlog of Africa. We took horses to Africa. We dumped them in there. We took horses to Australia. Horses are not native to Australia.
No.
We have the Australian Brumbies, but Australia itself is not. It's not a place for horses.
But do they do better over there in some of the arid places?
Well, in the arid places, there was some research has been done on that. It wasn't a great research project, but they did find some things. And one of the things that was noticeable, that the horses that were in these arid environments, they had beautiful feet, but often they were kind of too slim.
Oh, really?
Because the distances they had to travel for food and water were just
Massive.
far greater.
Yeah.
But you know, it's a very it's a massive topic when you think about it, because if you look at the horse from the perspective of a species, that means that this organism belongs somewhere. And it's up to us to figure out where the horse belongs.
Yeah.
Like a giraffe or a koala or a panda bear or whatever. They all have their own specific needs derived from a specific ecosystem. And if we can replicate that, or we can put them in there, then they're fine. But the moment you take them out,
things are going to go wrong. Yeah.
Plant life's going to change.
Yeah.
Soils are going to change, and everything that grows out and they eat is going to be different.
Yeah.
And it could affect their health. So you could have wild horses in Australia that are doing absolutely brilliant. But I know there's a lot of wild horses in Australia doing absolutely terrible, and you find that all across the world. It's.
But it's just going back to like the wild horse, you know, like horses, like zebras kept in zoos. They would never dream of keeping a zebra in a zoo the same way as we keep a horse in a stable.
No,
they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't keep them in a block separate like that. They wouldn't do that.
But the last time I went to a zoo, it was the last time I said I'm never going to the zoo again. I was in a zoo in Arnhem in Holland, and there were like 5 zebras there. 3 of them were lame. All of them was laminitis. You could just tell. Yeah. One was abscessing, and the other they were just the way they were walking.
Yeah.
It's because they were on the grass. They were on these short grass, and they were constantly eating the same thing, not eating hay. So, and then problems start.
I tried to tell people that, you know, I have people messaging me, sending me pictures of feet, and I'll say, your horse has got laminitis. No. The vet says it's not. It's arthritis. No. It's got laminitis.
And usually, this is because the veterinarians they tell you it's laminitis when you go to the acute stage. But there's all these. If you look at Jamie Jackson books, how he's described that, all these subclinical symptoms.
The signs there.
All the signs that you have that are there when you're in acute laminitis, but they're also there in the subclinical
they'll
phase.
say it came out of nowhere. Yeah. I got down there one day and it just come out of its stable like this. There was no signs. There's nothing. Oh, right. But you were feeding it top spec and out on the ryegrass. Yeah, but it's always lived like that. Yeah, well, it's an accumulative effect. The more we leave horses in this incorrect environment, it builds up, and then it's a ticking time bomb, and it's...
all of a sudden, you're done. Yeah, so we need lots of education.
Lots of education. Got to keep putting it out there. Got to keep doing interviews. Got to keep doing magazines, especially the ones that are from the traditional way. They're the ones that we need to preach to, because as much as I love doing interviews for people like yourself, I'm preaching to the converted. You guys know, and your audience know.
Well, I think what we should do is preach. And this is, I see what you're trying to say, but I'm kind of, this is what I see happening, is that we have a tendency to preach too much, and it gets a bit tricky. Before you know it, you start telling people what to do.
Oh, they don't like that.
And with this is what I've learned after 20 years. You can't tell people what to do. They have to figure it out themselves. So all you can do is give them the right information and let them go from there. And then, you know, this change that you see going on in the equine sector right now, it's a long time coming. It goes very slow. It's a massive change.
But it's happening.
It's happening. Yes. And it's been going on for 30 years, but it's going to take probably at least 50 years for things to really settle in.
Well, I'm hoping that we're still here by then, and I've got 3 sons.
We've got some time left. Time's on my side.
I've got 3 sons that I'm hoping will want to come along and do stuff as well. And I've got people say to me, are you just going to get it good and you're going to sell it and move away? And it's like, no. I this is my baby. This is... I built this from the ground up. You can still, there's my name on bits of the wood that when this barn was built and it was a flat pack and it was, they put my name on it, and it'll be here forever. And it's only, it's only going to be my budget that's going to slow me down with this place. There's so many more things to add, so many more things I want to do, more enrichment, tools to make things easier to do the job, like there's the active store kind of stuff. Have you seen that some of the things I like, some of the things I don't like, but I do want to implement things to make it easier for us to look after the horses and getting the hay out and stuff.
Yeah, there's this, we talked about this earlier, there's this fine balance between getting the horses what they need and making it workable and viable for you as the human.
Thing.
I know, it's a difficult thing. So it's a work in progress.
Because there are a lot of people that are real purists with the paddock paradise and the track system. And I was just about to say,
I can't help.
I know, but I'm hoping that
But I think you need to have some sense of puristness.
Oh yeah, there's got to be. You got
to raise the bar because otherwise it's just going to come down.
Because I've been nervous about you coming.
Why?
Because I like Katie was like, how does it go walking around the track? I said, well, he's not wowed by it because you see, all the
but that's my face.
No, but it's fine. It's not a criticism in any way. It's just, I have a lot of people coming here and they are blown, it's so different and they're blown up. They've never seen anything like it. And whereas I knew you would come and just be like, oh yeah, it's track system. Well, why have you done it like that? And why is that like that? And I knew that's how it would be. But I do welcome it. It's hard for me. But I do welcome it because, we've always got to be striving to do better and to learn. So as much as it is difficult for me to take even constructive criticism, I am open to it.
Well, so far I haven't criticised anything, I think. I'm just...
that's from your point of view. I'm going to go home and cry in a minute.
No, just when I go on a track like this, the thing I'm looking for is, okay, do they have dry feet? Do they have space? What are the feeding nets like? Will their teeth get damaged? Is it safe? I'm looking for safe, dry, no grass.
That is hard.
Kind of stuff. That's how I look at a terrain.
Yeah, the hygiene is one of the most trickiest things for us. So we poo pick twice a day, and it is hard.
That's the never-ending story.
It's hard for us, and keeping the feet clean and thrush free it's a constant battle, because even if they stood at hay net and they stand in one poo whilst they're eating that hay net, it's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. But as you go on your little journey of learning about trimming hooves maybe and how that all works, rest assured you can, if your track system is what it should be, if the quality of your hay is right, and if you don't putting in any rubble in terms of supplements, that thrush will go away. Don't worry about a foot stepping in some poo.
Oh, it drives me mad.
Yeah, you shouldn't be, that's not the kind of thing you should be worrying about. The thing that you should be worrying about is what's the quality of my hay, and how can I get it for sure year round. That's what I always tell people. The one thing you want to spend your money on is the quality of your hay. Everything else is
secondary.
It's basically secondary.
Yeah.
You want a safe environment, enough space for the horses, good quality hay, and then you've got 80-90% done.
Yeah.
And the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah.
If you're not piddling with things you shouldn't be piddling with. But that's another one. Hey, thank you so much.
No,
for this,
thank you. It's been my pleasure. Honestly, it really has been an honour. It really has.
We'll do it again.
Yes,
After you've learned how to trim.
I'm not being no trimmer. My back won't put up with it. I can't do it. But as long as I can learn and maybe do little bits in between and learn more to spot problems or things that might not be quite right.
This is what should be the objective of these trimming clinics.
Yeah.
For people to learn to spot problems. Not so much to become a trimmer.
No, that's not what.
You cannot learn to trim in 1, 2, or 3 days.
No.
It's freaking impossible.
No.
You can learn techniques, but you will not have the experience to see through the hoof, because every hoof out there is going to be different.
Oh yeah.
And every pathology in the hoof is going to be slightly different.
But we need to ignore that.
You need to ignore, but you need to see it.
Yes.
You ignore but that doesn't mean you don't see it.
No.
And you need to understand what it is for what it is, and not act on it with your rasp or your nippers or whatever, because then you're going to get in trouble.
But that is my worry as well. That's why I've tried. I'm concerned that what if I do know a little bit but not enough, and I see something and I think, I need to be able to make sure that I'm taught what I can and can't do, because I don't want to make a problem or make a problem worse.
Yeah, you can easily do that.
Yeah, that's why I'm very cautious about doing it and making sure. I'm hoping I've chose the right people to help me.
Make sure they, there's different hoof care philosophies all over the world.
Oh yeah.
I follow the one to me that resonates with me, that tells me this is what nature wants done.
Yeah.
All right. So but people think about this in many different ways, and I'm not here to judge anyone on what they're doing. You have one trimmer, and then you have someone else who's going to teach you something, and that trimmer you have, and the people that are going to teach you something, it's going to be different. It's up to you to figure out which is right. And I would advise you to go to the very fundamental of this barefoot thing that's going on. And go get your information there, and then work your way up. Otherwise, things are going to get confused. Muddy.
Messy.
Also, the term barefoot is also very confusing because it's very generic.
Yeah.
Barefoot, in essence, doesn't mean anything. It just means that there's no shoe on
the horse.
whatever. But what's the trim like? What's a barefoot trim? Well, what's a barefoot trim?
Is your horse still barefoot if it's just had its shoes taken off by a farrier, and then it's who's barefoot and who's really barefoot though, and it's
But I think Jamie Jackson did a great job of fencing this off. He went into the wild, looked at what it was like, started asking questions, started answering the questions, free thinking.
Yeah.
And then he kind of boxed it in.
Made it a product, made it a thing.
Then, okay, so we have these guidelines. This is what the horse is telling us. So we shouldn't go here. We should stay to where the horse tells us to be. Stay close to the biology of the horse, and then things will work out.
That's what I do try and tell people. That it's hard as well because on my Facebook I have people messaging me for advice, and I'm not actually insured. That's another thing people at livery yards don't have to think about. Is we're not actually insured unless you take out a specific insurance to just give advice out online. So I have to be careful that way. But I always say to people, the further you move away from the horse's natural life and how it should live, the more problems you're going to have. So
it's as simple as that.
Yeah, that's what I
nice
think.
Closure. Thank you.
I'm going to put a coat on now. Frozen. We did it.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
Yes, thanks for watching. That was good. Very good.
Thank you for listening, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this interview. Don't hesitate to like our channel and feel free to share this podcast. Keep it natural.